these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
As a member of Congress, I get to have a lot of really interesting people in the office. Experts on what they're talking about.
This is the podcast
for insights into the issues.
China, bioterrorism, Medicare for all. In-depth discussions.
Breaking it down into simple terms. We hold
these truths. We hold these truths.
With Dan Crenshaw.
The Eagle has landed.
Al, welcome to the show, and welcome back, everyone in the audience. So, I've hosted a number of law enforcement experts, most prominent of which we had Attorney General Bill Barr on recently. And these discussions, they focus on important issues like recent surge in crime, how to prevent it. But there's also immense value from learning from those who've actually been behind bars and turned their lives around and dealing with the recidivism issue that is a key driver of crime. So nationwide, we have 1.5 million people incarcerated in the United States, 600,000 people released every year. Typically, inmates are released with $50 in cash back into the same community they entered from, pretty ill-equipped to deal with the many challenges they face. And so, while no way a justification for repeated criminality, it's still predictable. You're put in this situation. Many of these former prisoners are confronted with barriers to employment, family re-engagement problems, and just dealing with the routine challenges of daily life. So, wanted to bring you on today, and our guest, just for the listeners, is Al Massey, and Massey. Sorry,
that's okay.
And Al, you got a really interesting story behind you, and you work with an organization that deals with this problem and very effectively too. So the numbers are pretty amazing. Give us a quick overview of the organization itself, what it's called. I got your presentation.
Right.
We were you were doing a local presentation for a local group of business leaders, and I thought it was cool. I don't think we've really hit this subject on the podcast in detail, and it's interesting to see your organization doing it. And so, curious how you're funded, how many prisoners you deal with, what's it called, and this is solely based in Texas, right?
It sure is. Okay, the name of the organization is the Prison Entrepreneurship Program, because we believe that entrepreneurship is a way to take them. I mean, they were successful businessmen, but there was illegal businesses that they've done. Yeah. So we're trying to tell them how to make it profitable and to really change their life. We've been in business for 18 years.
Wow.
And in that 18 years, we've graduated over 3,300 men. 600 have started their own business, and probably 20% of that are making over $1 million a year because we give them every tool they need to be successful.
That's a pretty high number. I mean, if you took a random sample of 3,200 people, you probably wouldn't get. So let's see what a percentage is. So 600. So 20% of the 600 are millionaires. Like, I mean, I'm not sure you'd get those kind of numbers if you took a random sample of 3,200 people, let alone ex-cons.
Right. Well, what we do is that we actually will go to all the prisons in the state of Texas. There's 84 prisons, and we recruit. We're looking for men within 3 years of finishing their sentence. They cannot have a major major case in the last year while they're in prison, no gang affiliation, and we cannot do a sexual offender.
Okay.
And if they want to apply for the program, we'll send them a postcard, and they return it, and they're going to fill out a 16-page application. Okay. It's like going to college. I mean, you have to put everything down you've ever done in your life. And we're not going to ask that question over and over again, so if we can catch them, because integrity is one of our most important driving values.
Yeah.
And so once they're accepted, we call it Leadership Academy. It's 3 months. Mm-hmm. And before we were doing it at Cleveland and Venus, but when the COVID came around,
not just for the audience, those are
prisons
in Texas.
They're private prisons here in the state of Texas.
Okay.
And so we were moving them to that, but because of COVID, they wasn't moving anybody. So we had to find out a way that we could keep the program going. So we pivoted.
Okay.
Because innovation is one of our 10 driving values.
Yeah.
So what we did is we started a correspondence course. And the first thing they do is they write their obituary. If they died that day, what would it say? And that's something that's going to really change your life, because you look and say, do I want to be remembered for the worst thing I've ever done?
Yeah.
Or do I want to be remembered for something that I've done that's really helped people and got me back with my family? Once they finish that, that's a 3-month course. We actually will move them to either Cleveland, Texas, which is the Oliver Bell unit, or to Venus, Texas, which is the Estes unit. They go through a 3-month business plan competition where they actually write a business plan and they deliver it. We do 3 classes a year at both locations. They write the business plan, they deliver it in front of volunteers that are like a Shark Tank. And we actually will award a winner at the end of it. But the greatest thing is that we work on their character, because if we don't change their character, they're not going to change. The average age of our participants is 34 years of age. You know, they're major crimes that they've committed in the past, but they want to change. Some of them have been down multiple times. But the one thing we found that most of them, 50% of them, didn't have a father figure in their life.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have that positive role model. So now we're bringing in volunteers. We have a great number of volunteers that come in to our unit, to our event, and all of a sudden now these men say, somebody cares about me.
Yeah.
Somebody has now said I have value, and they change their life. We teach them Toastmasters so they can get up in front of an organization and speak. Because in prison you don't want to look at anybody because they're thinking you're disrespecting them.
Right.
And so we teach them Toastmasters. We actually let them walk across the stage in a cap and gown, bring in their families. They get to see their kids. They give them a teddy bear, you know, and they also get a certificate of completion of entrepreneurship from Baylor Hankamer University. And so now they have the tools they need to get out there. But the best thing about our program is that we don't stop inside. We believe barbed wire to business. We believe on having the outside because, like you said earlier, $50 in a one-way bus ticket back to where you came from, you're not going to be successful. So we'll pick them up. We have a re-entry team, but we call them life caddies because just like Tiger Woods needs a caddy to tell him where the hazards are and not to drive the ball that way, our life caddies will actually walk with them for the first 90 days that they're out.
So, and you have an interesting history. I mean, how did you get involved with this?
Well, I was an executive in the transportation industry, and on Halloween night of 2003, I'd been entertaining clients because I grew up during the 3 martini lunch. That's how you got in business. Yeah. And I had a car wreck that took a life. So at the age of 55, I was sentenced to 6 years in prison for intoxication manslaughter. While I was there, I thought my life was going to be over because I was going to be over 60 when I got out. But I found the Prison Entrepreneurship Program. They recruited me and moved me.
So they had just started back then?
No, it started in 2004.
Yeah, but you just said 2003. So, I mean, they were fairly new.
Yeah, but I didn't go to prison until 2005.
Okay, gotcha.
So I actually started through the program in 2008.
Okay. Newer, but they were still, So anyway, they recruited. But you applied, you got in.
At that time,
do you have to be at one of these 2 prisons to even have access to this program?
No, it's every prison they recruited from. I was recruited from Mineral Wells.
So it's private prisons, state prisons.
We're in the private prisons, but we go to TECJ. They give us a list of the men that qualify for our program.
I see. Will they transfer them to
Yes, they do.
Okay, so the state works with you on this
to
some extent. Here.
They have found out that we have really helped them out because of the change that we made, because our recidivism rate is less than 7%.
Yeah.
The state average is 25%, and nationally it's 50%.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So we're stopping the flow.
What was the state recidivism rate?
State is 25%.
So we're doing better than the national average?
Yeah.
You think that's because of you guys?
Well, that's the ones that don't go through our program. You know, we have found out.
Yeah, what is your recidivism rate?
Less than 7.
Less than 7%.
Right.
So obviously, I want to get into the more. I have a lot more questions about the program itself, but your personal history isn't. So let's keep on that for a minute.
Okay. So anyway, I went to
you were in for 5 years.
5 years and 4 months.
I want to ask. I mean, not that many listeners have been to prison, myself included, and that's. I don't know if anybody can relate with it, but people can relate with living a normal life until the age of 55, and then everything's turned upside down on one decision, on one bad action. I mean, what was that mentally like, psychologically, going to prison, knowing here it is, I'm going, and how do you prepare for this? You've only really seen it on TV.
Well, I was fearful. I was afraid. There was many a night that I didn't know what I was going to do, but when I got there, I found out that there were men just like me. They could have made one mistake. It only takes one risk to get you there. But I found the most intelligent people I'd ever met in my life there. But they kind of took me under their wing because I was an old man. And they showed me, hey, you do this, do that, and you're going to be okay here. So it took away that fear. Once you get rid of that fear, then you can be successful. And when Prison Entrepreneurship found me, I thought, man, this is great.
Yeah.
I can start my own business when I get out.
What year was that in?
I was 2008 that I went through the program.
In three years at that point.
Right.
And I mean, like, what was your mental state like? You know, from day one to year 3, does it get better? Does it get worse? I mean, how do you? Yeah, a lot of people don't even understand at all what it's like. I think
I read a lot.
Read
okay?
a lot. So you can have access to books.
Oh yeah, there was a library, and I was going through 2 or 3 books a day because I wanted to keep my mind active. I was also doing crossword puzzles, but I also worked while I was in prison.
Okay.
I worked as a trustee, so I was always out of my dorm, out of my pod.
So how does that work? There's like a labor program you can sign up for.
Well, they pick you as you go through intake. They look at you and they see what your capabilities are. So I was given a job in commissary and also in the front office.
And is a job you get actually paid for?
Oh no, they don't. No.
Because that's an interesting conversation too. I know we're going on a variety of topics, but like I'll never. I remember AOC was making a lot of headlines a couple of years ago. She was dragging on the idea that prisoners can work. And not get paid for it, right? This sort of free labor, you know, they calls it slavery and all this. I mean, what is your general thoughts on that? Is it a good policy, or are we just taking advantage of these poor inmates?
Well, some people probably say that we're taking advantage of them, but to me, it was a way to make it through every day, because I was working in the commissary, which was air conditioning, but I was living in a pod with 50 guys. It was 120 degrees in the summertime because there's no air conditioning.
No air conditioning at all?
No.
Is it still that way?
Yes.
That seems like something that should be fixed.
Yeah, they're working on that, but in fact, they've had to move a lot of people to the air conditioning units because of the heat related, the older people.
Yeah, you die. You can't survive. Yeah. I don't know how anybody survives. Really?
Yeah, it was 140. I was in an old Air Force barracks in Beeville, Texas for 2 years, 140 degrees in the summertime. But I worked, like I said, I wanted to get up every morning and go to work because I knew it'd be cool there. And by the time I got back, I could sleep and then go back to work. But like I said, it also made me realize that we have to keep active. If you sit there and you don't work and all you're going to do is slam dominoes in front of a TV, what are you going to accomplish in your life? Yeah. You don't have the tools you need when you get out. So it opened my eyes, but I tell you what really opened my eyes. I had great parents, okay? I came from a Leave It to Beaver type family where my mother was a banker, my dad was an executive with the railroad. You know, he was 90 years old, and he drove every Saturday to Beeville, Texas to visit me. And that just kept me going. Yeah. And I called him every day when I got out because that was his thing until he passed on. But it was just that strong belief that I had that if I wanted to make it, I had to keep going forward. I couldn't let, we all have speed bumps in our life. Mm-hmm. And if we let it get us down, we're not going to go forward. So I'm going to keep moving forward.
Well, again, I would still want to illuminate the prison experience here because, we watch shows on Netflix and things that kind of tell us what it's like. I mean, and so from your typical American's perspective, you go in and everybody's divided up into gangs based on race. That you got to join one if you're gonna, jokingly, you got to kill someone right away if you're going to survive, so that they know that you're not to be messed with. Obviously, you didn't do that, and most people don't do that. I mean, so is the truth somewhere in between? I mean, what's the reality?
There's a lot of gangs there.
Yeah, and
it really is. I mean, you see fights all the time, and it's all racial. That's what I said about you couldn't look anybody in the face. You couldn't sit in a certain table if you were not of that race. You had to be real careful. And so that's what I noticed, and I was afraid. But you know what really happened one time when I was in Beeville, I had a guy come up to me, and he was the head of a pretty big gang, and he said, "You know what? I know that you probably shouldn't be here. I'm going to make sure nobody does anything to you." He was kind of like a protector to me. But you have to be careful of that because sometimes if they feed you or protect you, then they've got you under their wing, you know.
Yeah.
But
You don't know what they're going to ask you for.
You never know. So, but anyway, it was an experience that I wouldn't be who I am today if I hadn't gone through it. A lot of people can't make it through it.
Yeah.
But I'm strong-willed, and I said, I'm going to make it through it. And that's what I did.
What about I'm sure you met others who, first of all, did you know that you were going to do 5 years? Like, was it a 10-year sentence? You got out by 5, or it was? It was
a 6-year sentence. My attorney told me I'd probably do 18 months.
Yeah, it didn't
because
turn out
I'd
that
never
way,
been.
huh?
Yeah, he trapped me. So I took the plea bargain for 6, and I went through. I went to see parole 11 times, and I got turned down every time.
Wow.
And that was demoralizing because I wanted to go home, but I just knew maybe it wasn't my time to go yet. But I had other things to accomplish while I was there.
What about the guys you meet that are doing 30 years? You know, that seems hopeless to a lot of people. I mean, what is their mental state like, or have they just become a different person because their entire life is now in this prison?
You know, in fact, our CEO of Prison Entrepreneurship did 22 years. We had another one that did 20 years. And they just finally figured out that they wanted to change their life. Because once you want to change your life, you can find something to be productive in. And that's what they did. But it's hard. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
Prison's hard. And I'm not going back. Because I'm not going to do anything to send me back down that road. But I'm finding that all you have to do is give somebody a chance. See, most people that keep going back, they keep going back because they went home to the same environment with that bus ticket back. They don't have any hope. They don't have a job. They don't have anything to do. So they go back in that same environment, they're going to fail. And so you just have to say, look, when you're tired of coming to prison, then you need to make a change, and you make a change in your character.
What do you think in general, more philosophical, legal question of who we send to prison and who we just fine or make them do community service? You know, I think it's an interesting question because, you know, some would say that prison is really designed for people who are just too dangerous to be out. And should it be used as a way to protect society from people who would harm society unless they were locked up? Or is it a punishment where we're so mad at you for what you did, even though we know you'll never do it again, right? Because maybe, especially in your case, for instance, it's an accident. It's still your fault, but
right.
You're not a serial killer where if we don't stop him now, he's going to keep killing people, right? So, I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? Because that's a question I personally struggle with as a lawmaker about how we should think about this and whether we're putting too many people in jail.
You know, lately I've really been thinking about it a lot because I've seen so many people. I'm not going to mention names, but if somebody has a car wreck and they don't even have to go to jail out in California because they paid a lawyer a lot of money to do that.
Yeah.
You know, or if somebody got caught with marijuana and it was their second time down, they got sent for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. But then people are robbing Walgreens.
They're not
going to jail at all.
They're not going to jail at all, or there's no bond or anything else out there. I mean, our criminal justice system needs to be looked at and changed.
Right.
It does, but we have to be able to train people, give them tools while they're inside, and that's what you don't see a lot of.
No.
There's no programs really to help you. I went through a DWI program, and all we did was watch a movie. How was that going to help me when I got out?
Yeah, I've seen people, they're completely useless. Okay, so let's talk about the program in a little bit more detail. So it starts out with a 3-month leadership course. I mean, some of the questions I have is how scalable this is. So you guys have been around 18 years, said 3,200 graduates. I mean, how much have you grown in that time, and how much can you keep growing, and how are you guys funded?
Okay, we're going to keep growing, and we're wanting to go to other states, but we don't want to go to the other states until we have the right personnel. Mm-hmm. But we're developing that curriculum right now, and it's really working. We're funded 100% by either private donations or foundations and individuals. We take no money from the government.
No, but what if you got another $10 million a year from state of Texas? Could you translate that into a pretty serious upward scaling of this program? Could you reach a lot more inmates, or are there other capacity problems?
Well, we can reach other inmates if we get other prisons in the state of Texas. We're at the capacity at the 2 we're at.
Okay.
So, but we were looking at doing that before COVID hit. Mm-hmm. But one thing we're really looking at now is on the outside. Like I said, we're an inside-outside program. Yeah. We just in the process of opening up our new office, about 4,000 square foot, and we call it a collider because we want to collide with the volunteers and the graduates on the outside. And we can do more things. And we've even started our own banking system called Entree Capital because felons cannot get loans.
Oh, yeah, I remember you mentioning that. That was really interesting.
And so now we can give them low-interest loans to really start their own business. We do
So do you guys work with a specific bank that helps you do that, or how does
we started our own banking system
so
because we had some volunteers that were ex-bankers and owned their own banks, and so they started. Okay. We got our CDFI.
So small private banks that were cool. Okay.
And now we got our CDFI, and what that's going to do is going to open up other banks to get have money available. Mm-hmm. Right now we're just doing it for PEP graduates, but we see that we should do it for anybody incarcerated. Mm-hmm. It's just getting out, to give them that fresh start, to start things over. So that's what we're really working on. And I think it's going to happen before long. But you're going to see us in probably Nebraska, North Carolina, Colorado, Kansas, Pennsylvania.
What is preventing you from going into other Texas prisons? Is it just
with
personnel?
TDCJ has to get assigned
approval,
to prison.
Government approval?
Well, they just have to find a location that they can, because the beds are very important.
What is TCDJ?
Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And they're looking at it because they see what we're doing out there. I mean, they love us. They really do.
Yeah, I mean, 7% recidivism rate is nobody. Does anyone around the country? Are there any other programs like yours that have these kind of numbers?
Not inside and outside.
Yeah. But so there are other programs.
But they don't.
How would they compare? What do they do?
They're probably around 15-20%.
Okay, it's still pretty good.
It's still good.
Is anyone as big as your operation?
Not really.
Okay. What's the second best one?
Prison Fellowship.
Okay.
They're nationwide.
They're nationwide.
Right.
So they reach a lot of people.
They reach a lot of people.
And so, I mean, so you guys have no trouble funding it. You're not even saying you need government money.
We could use it.
Okay, you could use it. Sure, sure.
It
seems like a good investment because,
right.
I mean, that's always the question of if we're signing laws, for more money and more grants for this and that. And have you guys ever gotten a federal grant? There's got to be federal grant programs
we've applied for one this year for the first time.
Oh, for the first time. Okay.
Yeah. And what's really funny is that Harvard did a study on us and found out our ROI is 767% for every dollar invested.
It's a good investment.
Because it costs about $31,000 a year to house somebody in prison.
Okay, yeah. So
so our guys are getting out. They're paying taxes. We have 100% employment within 90 days. We have 85% within 20 days. Starting salary $14 to $15 an hour.
And these days, I mean, everybody is lacking workers. That brings me to another interesting question. I mean, what changes need to be made? And I don't know if these are changes, legal changes or just cultural changes where, you're solving a problem wherein felons get out and on their resume, on their record, an employer does a background check and boom, there it is, murdered somebody maybe 25 years ago, but still murdered somebody. And it's like, I'm going to move on to the next one. That happens with all of them. Right. How do you create that mutual trust? Is it helping the employer understand that they've been through this program? We're giving them a stamp of approval. I mean, that helps put their mind at ease. I mean, maybe I could just answer my own question there.
No, it does. And what's so funny is that when the program first started, it wasn't like that. But so many of our guys have gone out and they've been successful as entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs, right. That people want to hire them. We got calls every day, but we've run out of people to send for the jobs. They want to work. And there's a workforce out there that's dying to work. But you're right. You check that box, and they automatically look the other way. But another thing we do is we bring in HR personnel inside the prison. Mm-hmm. We actually do interview process, and we tell them how to answer, show them how to answer the question when you check the box. You know,
Right.
I could check. We tell them, hey, tell them, I really don't want to check the box because I want you to look at me as what I am today, what kind of person I am. Mm-hmm. Give me that opportunity, and it's so people will start doing that because they're believing in fresh starts. Yeah,
well, that's good to hear. And so, what are the other? I want to go over the numbers again because it's impressive. 7% recidivism rate. You said 600 people have started business, like their own business, and you're included in that. You have a few businesses
I'm getting ready to open up a restaurant in Katy, Texas.
Oh yeah, nice.
Called Let Us Eat.
Okay, Let Us Eat.
It's going to be a salad bar.
It's a salad bar. Got it. Yeah, very nice. Well, congrats. When is that going to be up?
Well, if we can ever get them to approve an inspection, sometimes they get a little tough out there. But anyway, I think we'll be opened up in October.
Yeah.
But, that's just something. I'm still going to work for a Prison Entrepreneurship Program because it's part of me.
Yeah. What are some of the you talk about prison system right now being trade schools, but trade schools for crime.
Right.
How much of that did you see while you were there? Like, did you see this problem where people go in for something, they're probably low level, and then they come out even higher level? Is that a problem we've seen? Is there, God, is there any way to fix it? Is the prison system itself broken? Is it the private prison system that's broken? Like, or is it the state prison system? And what other changes need to be made besides giving people opportunities there?
Well, with the prison system, they need more trades. And even if they even paid the guys like federal prisons do, they get paid so much that they have a job there. Okay. And, of course, you pay for your own beds and everything else. But if you get private industry to come in and actually pay these guys an X amount of money, then they're going to have money when they get out. They're going to have money in their pocket because that's what brings a lot of them down. They don't have anything when they get out. They don't have family to go home to. Yeah. Our guys here, you asked for interesting stats. Let me tell you one that's really, out of all of our graduates, usually 7 out of 10 men that go to prison, their children go to prison. We've had one child we know of be incarcerated from our graduates because now they're husbands, fathers, and sons again.
Yeah.
And 42% have bought their own homes within 3 years. They've never been homeowners before. We're just showing them a way that they can get their credit scores up, they can work, they can be successful, and if they want to, they can start their own business.
But my question was more just based on your experience in prison, and I use far left Democrats as an example. Something they really hate the private prison system. Were you in a private prison?
Yes, we were MTC.
So what's the difference between private prisons, state prisons, federal prisons? Is there a problem with private prisons?
No.
Okay.
Private prisons are great. They're air conditioned.
They're the ones that are air conditioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but anyway, they have a lot of opportunities for you there, and especially if you're in a pre-release, it's and the guards, they have trouble with guards staying there, okay, because of the pay. But
the pay is not so good at private
right.
prisons. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's less than it is at.
But the quality of life is better for prisoners.
The quality of life is better for food and everything else. Especially we had softball we could play.
How do you know? How does the state decide whether an inmate goes to a private prison or a state prison or a federal prison? Well, federal prison for federal crimes, right. Of course, but. How did the state and private? What
they do is when they have people that work in the prison, and if you're within so many years of going home, you're going to go to a different unit. Okay.
Okay.
That's how they do it. They look at your crime, how long you've been.
So they try to group people based on what crimes they've committed.
Basically, because at private prisons, they're usually pre-release, so they don't really have armed guards. Okay, you have a fence with razor wire on it.
Okay, so you're within a couple of years of getting out?
You're within 3 years of getting out.
Okay, so they're not anticipating a lot of violence from you because you're like, why would you commit violence when you're about to get out? Is that the mentality?
That's the mentality.
Interesting. So you didn't start out in a private prison. You started out in the 120 degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know why I'm fixated on the 120 degree swelter. So 50, you're in a bunk room basically with like it's like a Marine barracks, like with 50 dudes in there, just sweltering heat. Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, that's like you could die in there in that kind of heat. The smell must have not been so great.
And it wasn't. But a lot of times, if they had lockdown, which they do twice a year, you couldn't even leave your bunk. They didn't let you shower for two or 3 days, and then you'd be sitting in there sweating and just. It was bad. I'm telling you, but just.
What is the purpose of lockdown then?
Well, they go through and look for contraband.
Okay, 2 or 3 days. That's a lot. That's
2 to 3 times two times a year. Sometimes it could be 3 days. It could be a week.
I see. Okay, it wouldn't last 3 days. Okay, I was like, geez, that's a long inspection.
It could be 3. It could be a week that we've been locked down. If there was a riot, or a fight, there's a lot of different things. I was at a riot in Mineral Wells where it was pretty bad, and we were locked down for quite a while.
Yeah. Jeez. I mean, I don't know. I know I'm asking a lot of questions about that. Maybe you weren't expecting that.
No, but, that's fine with me.
I just think it's interesting. I think it's good for people to know also.
Well, don't do anything wrong. You don't have to worry about finding out. That's the way.
Yeah. Well, that is a good way of putting it. So what's the next state you guys think you're expanding into?
Like I said, we've had a lot of people that have reached out to us, and we've made some trips there. But we just, like I said, we don't want to go to an area until we make sure we have everything in place, because all it takes is one person to do something wrong to graduate in another state that could run the program forever.
Can people who have not been through your program contact y'all for help? Again, writing their resumes, getting that connection with your network of businesses that are willing to hire ex-cons?
Well, we didn't do it in the past, but just like I was just saying, because of the Entree Capital and this new building that we built, we're looking at letting only people that have been incarcerated take part in our program.
Okay, so you guys are opening up. You were just telling me about that before we started recording. You're opening up a new headquarters right here in downtown Houston. And
right.
What will you do there? Is that what happens there?
Okay, we call it. It's at the East End Maker Hub. There's a lot of entrepreneurs in there. But what we're going to do is we're going to have events there. We do networking events and bring in our graduates. We're going to do a business plan competition in there. We're going to have mentors to come in and help our guys hone their business plan and be successful on the outside. It's just going to be a great meeting place. We'll have different events because we have a big stage area, and I'm telling you, it's just we've been in there since last week, and it's this beautiful place. Every guy that walks in that's just gotten out of prison, they can't believe this is somewhere they can go.
Well, okay, so last question. How do people listening to this, maybe they themselves are in this situation, maybe they have a friend or family member who was, how do they contact you and ask for help?
Well, you can go on to our website, which is www.pep.org, or you can do a Massey at pep.org and get in touch with me.
Okay.
And it'd be a privilege for me to answer your question and tell you how you can change your life too.
Well, it's an incredible organization, and the numbers don't lie. You've had all this success with zero government funding, and we're always looking for big returns on taxpayer investment, and this is a big one. And people are real focused on the criminal justice system at the moment because it's not working. Right. We hinted at that a little while ago, where we noted that a lot of us don't understand why certain people are in jail and certain people aren't. I tend to have a softer heart with criminal justice reform, and because I tend to think that we have to distinguish between people we're mad at and people we're afraid of. If we're afraid of you, you should be in jail, right? We're gonna take that extreme step, which is taking away your liberty. And I'm not sure we see that as a society as an extreme step anymore, but it's very extreme. It's one of the reasons I wanted you to talk so much about your experience there. This is a hellish experience. To have your liberty stripped from you it's in a very extreme step. And part of me thinks we really should refocus how we administer that kind of justice. Are we mad at you? And if we're mad at you, how else can we punish you without completely ruining you? And that's a longer conversation. It's a philosophical one, and it's for lawmakers to decide. But it's it's worth thinking about, because, you know, are we making things worse by putting you in jail for certain things? Now, that being said, I think people who are dealing fentanyl and killing 80,000 Americans should be put to prison for life.
They should.
I think that should immediately be our swift justice. I think if you rape a child, you should be put to death. You know, most people listening agree with me on
I
this.
agree with you wholeheartedly.
But like, there's just so many people in jail are not even close to these kind of crimes and are in there for years. I mean, years. I swear to God, if I do something wrong accidentally one time, you put me in jail for a week, I will have learned my lesson. Like, I never want to go back and do that again. I imagine. I've never actually been, but
I was never arrested before I had the accident.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy, and it's a shell shock to you. And I of course have to qualify. I've never actually been, because people will be listening and try to create some new rumor about me, and there's a lot. but so I think what you guys do is very important, and that's why I wanted to have you on today. And you know, I want to kickstart this. I think this is a solution to a big problem in this country.
Well, that's why I'm glad I'm so happy when you showed up at that event that I was at. I wasn't expecting to see you there. I heard you on the radio on the Fox News that day, because we have been wanting somebody to hear what we had to say, because Texas is where we've been. Nobody knows too much about us outside Texas.
Yeah.
And more people are hearing about us and seeing what we can do and how we can help people. You know, we got 32 employees, and 22 of them are graduates of the program. That's why we know how to run the program.
It's incredible. Well, appreciate what you do, Al.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.
Thanks.